You want me to put that on my Tudor?
Harry's wife. This is my story. Once upon a time, there was a strong and independent feminist, although she didn't realize it just yet. She had a mummy and a daddy, but despite her best efforts to keep them together, they wouldn't stay together, and therefore she sold her pet unicorn in order to put herself through school. Her mother went away as a consequence of being sent on a quest by Harry's wife to look out for the orphanage for unwanted ginger children and bring them peace and contentment. She gave various ideas to her father, enabling to win several awards for lighting. He never thanked her. This was something that upset her greatly, and something that she decided that perhaps one day she might look into. Fortunately for the world, she was busy with other matters than being concerned about her father getting fat and losing his hair, and therefore she set up on a quest to ensure that the corporate greed of the world was being addressed. First stop was Procter & Gamble. Those gods of detergent, she decided, needed to be taught a lesson, and she was the warrior princess who was going to stick it to them. Wielding her mighty pen of platitudes, she wrote a stern letter to them which caused the board to cower under her might. They readily agreed to her demands, and thus the world was right again. Thereafter, Harry's wife set upon righting the world, rescuing unicorns, kissing frogs and turning them into princes. She spent her time finding pots of gold at the end of the rainbow, but rather than keep them for herself, she would donate them to worthy charities, less a 95% finder's fee. She designed clothing, but she decided not to put her name to them, instead sending them to the various fashion houses around the world, inviting them to use the designs as she saw fit. She knew she was already a fashion icon. She had many friends, but she recognized that they were just merely steps on the way to her greatness, and, with a single tear falling from her left eye, she knew that she would have to leave them behind. She met various men. All of them proposed marriage within 30 seconds of meeting her, for they were taken in by her radiance, her beauty, and her bleeding heart. People wanted to know her story, but she decided that she would keep that to herself, and she would rather go and eat a Sizzler salad on her own and occasionally get naked for a noodle. She would hang around Korean saunas, explaining to them that they were not utilizing the appropriate temperature with which the world could be saved. They thanked her and corrected their abhorrent ways, ensuring that the world was saved from being plunged into a red-hot inferno climate change disaster. Next up was politics. She wrote some strongly worded letters to various people in important positions. She did not hear from them, but she knew that she did not need to, the reason being everybody would listen to her, and they would readily enact what she decided. She sent ideas to Jeff Bezos about setting up a company that would sell books from a garage and then become the A to Z of everything. She was delighted to note that Mr. Bezos met with great success as a consequence of her idea. She was, however, less than impressed that he failed to acknowledge her by failing to offer her any shares or indeed making mention of her in his many speeches. Next, she sent some code to a gentleman called Bill Gates. She got into her time machine, went back in time before she was born, provided it to him, and said, "Use this to make the world a better place through computing." The respectable Mr. Gates suggested, "You know what? I will do that. Thank you, Harry's wife-to-be. You have made the world a better place." "You can thank me later," she said, with various stock options. She was later dismayed after returning to the future that he did not provide her with any such stock options, and she added him to the list of people that she would perhaps talk about the day that she launched her world-beating podcast. Next, she decided that she would go and visit Mr. Musk. She thought he had a funny-sounding name, but that didn't matter because she decided that she would share with him her ideas with regard to something called PayPal and also tell him how to properly make electric cars. He was overwhelmed and thankful, explaining that he would probably choose to marry her in the future. She said she would think about it and let him know at a future point. Following on from that, she decided that the next thing that she would do would be to conquer the world of acting. She was offered various parts. Clarice in Silence of the Lambs. She was offered the position of Meryl Streep's character in Mamma Mia. She was offered many different parts. She clambered once again into her time machine and was offered the part of Mary Poppins by Julie Andrews, but she felt that the moral fibre of the character didn't match with who she was and turned it down. Next, she decided that she would be Erin Brockovich. However, it clashed with her commitments to handing out tofu bars on the streets of Los Angeles, and therefore she decided to give it to Julia Roberts instead. Thereafter, she had a word with Uma Thurman and directed her to play the iconic character of Beatrix the Bride Kiddo in Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2, telling her, "You can thank me later." She auditioned for and was offered the part of Rose DeWitt Bucata in Titanic, but then she saw Kate Winslet sat outside crying, desperate to get a film role, and decided in her magnanimity to offer it to her instead. She was also wanted as the first person to play Sarah Connor in the Terminator movies, but she decided that because she wasn't as facially beautiful as Harry's wife, that Linda Hamilton should be given the part instead. Thereafter, she easily stepped into the role of becoming Hermione Granger in the Harry Potter franchise. Yet she thought that perhaps a slender girl who didn't really have much going for her would be better suited to the role. She taught her how to use a wand and how to channel magic appropriately and said, "Use that at the audition, you'll knock them dead." And thus Emma Watson was thrust upon the world. She even managed to transform herself into an animated individual whereby she played Alice Liddell in Alice in Wonderland, not only going back in time to play the role, but converting herself to an animated character. This is the story of Harry's wife, as is clearly, obviously, true. But this is just the first part of the story of Harry's wife, and there's so much more to come. But it would appear that according to Entertainment Daily, Harry's wife wants to get her story across. It may well be just as I've explained it to you. Nevertheless, she wants a new tell-all project, and amid speculation about the Sussexes' relationship and following the publication of Prince Harry's controversial memoir Spare, a source has suggested that Harry's wife may be working on a book of her own. This again. The mag claims any such publication could reveal surprise and personal revelations concerning her marriage. Well, I hadn't got onto that in the dramatisation of Harry's book. Perhaps I will do so next time. Furthermore, a source is said to have told Bella that Harry could be worried about what is contained within any potential book. The insider reportedly claimed, "Harry's wife really wants to get her side of the story across after Harry got the space to tell his story so deeply." They went on to claim the Duke of Sussex may have been less than perfect during his 5-year marriage. Foreshadowing alert. As I predicted before, as a consequence of Harry being in the sustained devaluation, Harry's wife will readily smear him to the outside world, and will likely do so through a series of interviews and her own book. She will talk about his temper. She will talk about his drug taking. She will talk about how he was not the doting father that he ought to have been. She will reinvent history because her narcissism will do so, and already this article is foreshadowing what she's going to do. Additionally, it was claimed he may have fallen short as a partner to the Duchess. Now remember, in the very beginning, he was perfect. Do you remember the time when she was dressed as an overripe burst tomato and she turned in answer to a question from the press and said, "I'm proud of everything he does"? Or the words to that effect. Where is that pride now? Of course, he was in the golden period, or perhaps at that juncture a respite period, more likely. But that is forgotten about. And all of the things that she once liked about him have crumbled and turned to dust. Why? Because he's painted black. The unnamed source reportedly continued, "There have been times that Harry has been less than perfect in marriage, which he acknowledges, but no one is perfect. Harry is worried because he suspects that there will be revelations about his part in everything. Oh, you bet your bottom dollar, oh ginger bollocks. Including times where he may have fallen short of being a supportive husband to her, especially when life was tough within the firm. So, this foreshadows that there'll be more victimhood from Harry's wife, that not only was the Queen a big meanie, and that Catherine wasn't supportive and made her cry, and that William rebuffed her when she tried to give him a blowjob, and Prince Philip squinted at her in an evil way, and Camilla blew smoke in her face, that her husband also will have been similarly icy, cruel, and unsupportive of her aims to change a centuries-old institution. The fact is that Harry's wife is likely to dole out an absolute rendition of nonsense as part of her story in order to smear Harry, in order to try and cause people to feel sorry for her. She'll get the attention because people will be fascinated to learn what she has to say about the marriage and more of the same that was being pumped out previously. But they'll want to know more about what she's got to say about Harry, particularly when it comes to the fact of the relationship crashing and burning. People will not believe it. They will want to read about the porcupines that she comes out with. But Harry's wife cannot resist wanting to tell her story. As always, it'll be her truth. The prospect of making a lot of money will prove irresistible to her as a residual benefit. And of course, as always, her narcissism will guide her as a means of asserting control both over Harry, who at that juncture is likely to be disengaged from, and for the purposes of smearing other people, such as William, Catherine, Charles, Camilla, and so forth. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.